When war engulfed the globe in 1939, the British Royal Navy stood as the largest and most powerful maritime force in the world. For a nation reliant on overseas trade and with an empire spanning 5 continents, the Royal Navy was more than a branch of the military, it was a lifeline. Throughout World War II, the Royal Navy guarded the sea lanes, hunted enemy ships and submarines, supported amphibious invasions, and ensured that Britain, though an island under siege, was never isolated. This is the story of how the Royal Navy helped secure Allied victory by dominating the oceans. Britain's lifeline, why the Navy mattered. Britain's survival in World War II depended on one thing above all else: control of the seas. With its food, oil, raw materials and war supplies arriving by ship, Britain could not afford to lose access to maritime routes. From the very start, the Royal Navy faced the daunting task of protecting merchant convoys from German U-boats and surface raiders, securing global supply lines from North America, the Caribbean, Africa, India, and Australia, blockading Axis ports to starve enemy economies of resources, supporting amphibious operations in North Africa, Italy, and eventually Normandy. The oceans were a battlefield, and the Royal Navy stood on the front lines every single day of the war. The Battle of the Atlantic, a naval war of attrition. The longest continuous campaign of the war was the Battle of the Atlantic, where German U-boats sought to cut off Britain's maritime lifelines by sinking convoys. The Royal Navy responded with convoy systems protected by destroyers, corvettes, and armed trawlers, anti-submarine tactics using sonar, ASTIC, depth charges, and hedgehog mortars, escort carriers and long-range patrol aircraft to close the mid-Atlantic gap, decryption of German naval codes at Bletchley Park, which allowed convoys to avoid U-boat wolf packs. Though early losses were devastating, especially in 1942, the Royal Navy, alongside the U.S. Navy and Canadian forces, eventually turned the tide. By 1943, German U-boat losses became unsustainable, and the Atlantic lifeline remained open. Major naval engagements. Throughout the war, the Royal Navy was involved in critical battles that shaped the outcome of the conflict. The Battle of the River Plate, 1939, the Royal Navy cornered and forced the German pocket battleship Admiral Graf Spee to scuttle near Uruguay. The Norwegian Campaign, 1940, naval forces fought to prevent Germany from seizing strategic Norwegian ports. The sinking of the Bismarck, 1941, after the German battleship Bismarck sank HMS Hood, the Royal Navy hunted it across the Atlantic and delivered a decisive blow. Malta Convoys, the Royal Navy heroically supplied the besieged island of Malta, a key base in the Mediterranean campaign. Operation Torch and the North African landings, 1942, British ships supported the Allied invasion of Vichy-controlled North Africa. D-Day, 1944, on June 6, the Royal Navy provided the backbone of Operation Neptune, the naval component of the Normandy invasion, escorting landing craft, bombarding coastal defenses and clearing mines. Facing the Axis navies, the Royal Navy faced multiple naval threats. The Kriegsmarine, Germany with its U-boats, battleships and commerce raiders. The Regia Marina, Italy, which posed a threat in the Mediterranean, especially during the early war years. The Imperial Japanese Navy. After 1941, Britain's Eastern Fleet operated against the powerful Japanese Navy in the Indian Ocean and Pacific. Though stretched thin, the Royal Navy adapted quickly and collaborated closely with Allied navies to ensure superiority in key theaters. Innovation and sacrifice. World War II forced the Royal Navy to evolve. New technologies such as radar, sonar, aircraft carriers, and advanced gunnery systems transformed naval warfare. The use of HMS Ark Royal, escort carriers, and merchant aircraft carriers showed Britain's willingness to experiment under pressure. The price of this maritime dominance was high. Over 50,000 Royal Navy personnel lost their lives. Hundreds of warships and thousands of merchant vessels were sunk. Yet the sacrifices ensured that the UK was never cut off, and that the global Allied war machine kept moving forward. The Royal Navy's legacy in World War II. By 1945, the Royal Navy had helped secure Allied control over the seas. It had delivered men and supplies to every Allied front, destroyed or neutralized major Axis naval threats, maintained Britain's global connections, supported nearly every major amphibious operation of the war. The Navy's quiet, relentless labor, across oceans and under fire, was vital to Allied victory. The Royal Navy was more than a shield, it was a sword, striking from the seas in defense of liberty. From icy Arctic convoys to the shores of Normandy, it proved again and again that control of the sea meant control of the war. In the words of Churchill, "The Navy can lose us the war, but only the Air Force can win it." the Royal Navy made sure it never lost.